Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of the OneTaste Cult? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the alleged crime, then offer my analysis. In 2004, a woman named Nicole Daedone started a company called OneTaste. The company hosted events based on a technique that she referred to as orgasmic meditation. This was often shortened to the term OM, which was pronounced as Om. Nicole said that she learned a version of this technique from a monk at a party. Essentially, Om was an activity where a man would touch the genitals of a woman for 15 minutes. The partners would not make eye contact during this exercise. The technique was conceptualized as separate from sex. It was not supposed to represent foreplay, rather simply 15 minutes of meditation focused on sensation and pleasure. The partners who engaged in the Om activity were not necessarily romantically involved. They referred to each other as research partners. The man was referred to as the stroker and the woman as the strokee. This naming convention could have led to a confusing 911 call in the event of a particular medical emergency. For example, I can imagine someone telling the operator, "We just had a stroker who had a stroke while stroking a strokee. It was just a stroke of luck that I saw him and called for help." The OneTaste company used the term Om as a verb. For example, members might be heard saying, "Oops, I accidentally walked in on a couple oming. Those people look tired. How many times have they omed today?" Or, "That was kind of disappointing. It was nothing to write Om about." OneTaste initially held events in San Francisco, but they expanded to several other places like New York, Texas, Colorado, and London, England. The company offered several packages for students to buy. A weekend course was about $500. A retreat was $4,000. There was a coaching program for $12,000, and $16,000 would buy what OneTaste referred to as an intensive. About 10 years after being established, the company offered a $60,000 membership that was good for a year. With this deal, students could take all the courses they wanted. They could have referred to this package as the Om Run. In 2009, the New York Times published a story about OneTaste on the front page of its style section. This led to a boost in recruitment for OneTaste. Now moving to the timeline of the alleged crime. Nicole Daedone functioned as the chief operating officer from when she founded the company in 2004 until 2017. A woman named Rachel Sherwitz was the head of sales. She worked for the company from 2009 to 2018. The company was relaunched under new ownership in November of 2022. The company has been rebranded as the Institute of Om. During the time when Nicole and Rachel were working together, OneTaste morphed into a cult. Employees, contractors, and students were all referred to as members. Many of these members reported being manipulated and otherwise mistreated. In 2023, Nicole and Rachel were indicted for allegedly participating in a forced labor scheme. Here's what the indictment said. Between 2006 and 2018, Nicole, Rachel, and others obtained labor and services from OneTaste members by using a number of techniques, including manipulation, intimidation, surveillance, and indoctrination. A few examples. They intentionally recruited individuals who had suffered prior trauma and claimed that OneTaste services could heal past trauma. They induced OneTaste members to incur debt, including asking them to open multiple lines of credit to finance expensive courses. Nicole and Rachel knew that the members could not afford the courses. Members were spied upon using surveillance tactics. They were made dependent on OneTaste for basic necessities. They had to be absolutely committed to Nicole and promote her ideology. She would not tolerate dissent. The conspirators collected sensitive information from members, which was used to exert influence and control. The members were isolated from contact with outsiders and sometimes told to terminate established romantic relationships. The conspirators promised to pay wages and commissions for work performed on behalf of OneTaste, but then refused to pay what was owed. As part of their employment with OneTaste, some of the members were directed to engage in sexual activity. Sometimes this was done to win favor with prospective investors and clients. Members who did not obey the various orders given by Nicole and Rachel were publicly humiliated and subjected to workplace retaliation. At the time making this video, Nicole and Rachel maintain the presumption of innocence. If they are convicted, they are facing a maximum of 20 years in prison. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Nicole's idea about orgasmic meditation was not original. It was actually part of an old marriage and family counseling technique used to help couples with their sex life. For example, a couple might come in to see a therapist and say that they were not having sex anymore. The therapist would instruct the couple to go home, undress, and touch each other, but they were not to have sex. When the couple engaged in this exercise, it built sexual tension. This led to the couple breaking the rules of the therapist and having sex anyway. The couple then realizes that the therapist solved their problem through this paradoxical technique. Nicole positioned OneTaste as if the OM activity was not about sex, but it often led to sex, just like it would in the context of therapy. That was really the whole point of it. Nicole simply repackaged sex in a different way to make it seem like it had some type of higher spiritual purpose. She made it seem more civilized, refined, and meaningful. People could give in to their desires without feeling shame. Item number 2. Nicole represented the OM technique as if it was a scientifically proven method that could bring about healing. She made several claims about the technique. For example, it could deepen joy and intimacy by fusing meditative attention to sexual arousal. It would address emotional numbness and depression. The technique could dissolve feelings of loneliness and disconnection, and members would feel a reduced desire for things that would be bad for them, like alcohol. There is, of course, no evidence to support any of these claims. On the OneTaste website, there's an article containing a number of claims about the OM technique. At the end of the article, there's a small reference section, which contains many references that are not even scholarly articles. One reference was an article written by OneTaste, which of course would elevate the risk of bias. Another reference said it was in review, so it was not actually published, and other articles had nothing to do with OM. Usually cults do not even attempt to convince the public that the nonsense is scientifically proven. Nicole's actions demonstrate that she was particularly brazen, and she believes people are extremely gullible. Item number 3. Nicole incorporated a religious component into her cult. Certain events involved rituals, which used items often seen in the occult, like snakes. She named a small group of members priests and priestesses of orgasm. Nicole told members that engaging in sex with repulsive individuals expanded their sexual energy and helped them to gain power. She did not tolerate any dissent and would try to use shame as a weapon. Nicole identified as a radical guru promoting sex positivity and connection. Members of the group were encouraged to refer to outsiders as in the matrix or asleep. I imagine the members were afraid of being kicked out of OneTaste, like they would no longer be playing for the OM team. They would lose their OM away from home and have no place to call OM. Item number 4. Staff who operated recruiting events for the company said they were trained to look for specific characteristics in potential members. The women were supposed to be young and beautiful, and the men were supposed to be wealthy, awkward technology guys. OneTaste had a chronic gender imbalance. They had a lot of men and very few women signing up for events. They tried to address this problem by reducing or waiving the fees for female members. Item number 5. OneTaste events featured attendees playing games, which encouraged them to share sensitive information. Staff members would often collect this information looking for vulnerabilities, like a prospective student who was lonely or divorced. they would then tailor a sales tactic specifically designed to attack that person's weaknesses. There was a specific emphasis on trying to find people who had traumatic experiences. This is a common tactic of many cults. Pretty much every cult does this to some extent. They look for people who are hurt, confused, and seeking a sense of purpose in life. The best potential member from the cult's perspective is one who sees the cult as the solution to all problems. Item number 6. In the OneTaste ideology, all the problems that members had were connected to sex. A few examples. When workers would complain about working long hours, they were told that they should engage in more because orgasms were the source of endless energy. One employee claimed that he was instructed to have sex with a coworker because they were disagreeing about something. Nicole claimed that trauma was something that needed to be discharged and implied that sex could accomplish this goal. She appeared to recognize that sex was the driving force behind the cult. According to one member, Nicole acknowledged that she was selling sex. It appears as though Nicole had an unusual way of implementing a common idea as far as developing a cult. Most cults are based on sex, and OneTaste was no exception. Item number 7. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Nicole Dedone had a fascination with New Age nonsense and wanted to find some way to make a living by using it. She came up with the Orgasmic meditation idea and developed the OneTaste Cult. She knew that selecting sex as a motivator was bound to be successful. Nicole was grandiose, manipulative, possessed superficial charm, and had a sense of entitlement. She was able to recruit people by tapping into their vulnerabilities. She was exceptionally good at inspiring people through deception. Nicole designed her cult around sex while telling people it wasn't really about sex. This removed shame and facilitated the growth of the cult. She built a powerful sales team by teaching them manipulation tactics. Nicole was creative and tried to tap into any potential motivation a person may have to join the cult. She claimed that there was a scientific component to it. For example, she used the term research partner instead of sex partner. Nicole incorporated a religious component, which included priests and priestesses. She rewarded productive members with meaningless titles like Master Stroker, and brought in concepts from many other cults, including Scientology. OneTaste met many of the criteria to be classified as a cult. It was authoritarian and manipulative, based around communal goals, indoctrinated members by using an ideology, and employed a relatively new belief system in the culture of origin. When speaking about OneTaste, Nicole said, quote, "There is high potential for this to be a cult," unquote. The reason this was true is because Nicole wanted it that way. It was a cult by design, not by accident. Now moving to my final thoughts. The problem with a cult isn't always necessarily attributable to the motives of the members. In this case, the members were lonely and wanted to take matters into their own hands. The problem is that trying to meet one's needs through a cult places a person under the control of a cult leader. Inevitably, the leader becomes consumed by a need for power and control. Cult members always seem to get more than they bargain for. They find both good and bad, but the bad is always one stroke ahead. To be fair to Nicole, she wasn't the worst cult leader ever. At least no one could accuse her of being anticlimactic. Those are my thoughts on the case of the OneTaste Cult. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching. The man was referred to as the stroker and the woman as the strokee. The man was referred to as the stroker and the man was referred to as the stroker and the woman was the strokee. The man was referred to as the stroker and the woman the man was referred to as the stroker and the woman as the strokee.